Hi, my name is Taylor Mason, and I work here at the House of Representatives Archives in Harrisburg. Our new exhibit is the Transformation of House Technology, which features updates to the House floor and offices from the 1900s up to the current day. These panoramics are from 1965 and 2017. They show the vast differences of technology during those years. Specifically in the 1965 one, you will see there's no laptops, the microphones are very different, the rostrum, the voting boards are different, the voting boards along the walls are also very different. And then in modern times, we have now laptops and there's cell phones, there's all digital recorders and digital voting boards. On the very top of this poster, which shows the before and now photos of the House floor, the first one on the top left shows microphones from 1929 on the left, and on the right are what the microphones look like in 2022. To the right of that are the voting boards. In 1961, electronic voting boards were first installed. Verbal roll call was used prior to that, but now there is a digital version on the House floor today. Below that on the left, cameras used to be on the ledges of the House floor. Cameramen would have to climb up to the ledges to get the cameras to start, but now they are accessed remotely, as you can see on the left. On the right, prior to laptops that were first installed in 1999, the only accessible resource were bill books and a lot of paper, like you see on that member's desk there. And then below that, there is a copy of a bill book. These were the original resources. And then to the right of that is a copy of a bill now that's accessible online. So now with computers, all members and staff can use the online internet access with LDP instead of using the bill books as you see on the left. This poster is about members and technology from the 1980s. On the top left are Representatives Donald Dorr and Carl Boyles being interviewed by the media in one of the TV caucus studios. On the top right, you'll see Representative Joe Markosik working behind the scenes in one of the TV studios for the Democratic caucus. You can see how the equipment was a lot larger and a lot more complicated than it is today instead of having it in all one unit. So it's a lot more massive equipment than what we have today instead of having it in one laptop and one device. And then below that on that row is a staff member working in one of the TV studios with cameras, so you can see how clunky and large they were back then. To the right of that is Representative Alan Kukovich, and he is looking for direction from studio staff, so you can see the vast differences in technology there. And then below that are Representative John Alden and staff looking at radio equipment in one of the caucus audio studios. To the right of that is Representative Brian Clark recording a radio interview. And then below that is Representative Alan Kukovich again, preparing for the Harrisburg report, which was a Harrisburg chamber-based interview section that some of the members would do here in the caucus studios. This poster here describes how the House Archives is now going to be a digital archive, how we're going to get new records and be able to digitize them, but also digitize cassette tapes and VHS tapes, video reels, beta cams, floppy disks. So all these different types of media we are able to take into the House Archives, and we are now going to be able to digitize those and make those available to the public. This will take a couple of years until we get everything running, but we are really determined to make this all available to the public. Just as we described in the previous poster about all the physical forms of media and now that are going to be digitized, these are just a few examples of the media that we physically hold in our archives. So we have film reels. This large circular object is an old film reel. We have DV cams, floppy disks. We have a lot of floppy disks. Even some vinyl records. We have a couple of those. You'll see one here, and then in the back, this is from Milton Schaap when he was running for governor. Behind that is a large beta cam, and we're working on converting those at the moment. But there's also mini discs, which were very popular in the early 2000s, and we have cassette tapes, some more film reels, Microfilm, we have microfilm which showcase with the house journals. We have house journals on some of the microfilm here. And then these in the front in this green case are microcassettes. And we have a lot of house session on these little microcassettes, and we have boxes and boxes of those back in our storage area. This case here shows different ways staff and constituents used technology back then. Here to my left is a stenograph from Jane Sally, who was one of the head reporters for the house for 40 years. We have her old manual, her case, and her stenograph, in addition to some old shorthand notes from house session. In the front here are the notes from the day Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in 1968. Beside that is an old Polaroid camera and a Canon camera from the chief clerk's office. They found them in their storage areas, and photographers before our Canon digital cameras now would have used these. Beside that is a contact sheet. So instead of sending photos digitally, back then they would have had a bunch of photos on one piece of paper, and that's called a contact sheet, and then the person or member could pick out which photos they would have wanted printed. In front of that are old newspaper plates. That was for campaign purposes. And then beside that is a dictaphone tape and a dictaphone set. So this was an old way of transcribing. Instead of having it done through the recorder and doing it on a computer now, this would have been the way you would have heard the audio via a dictaphone tape. This case shows all about house floor technology. So on the very far left is an old microphone from the mid-1900s, probably the 1960s. And then in the middle are old voting machines from the mid-1900s as well. These are both the same. The one behind in the wood casing, that is from James Mandarino, who was a former speaker. And in the front here, this is from former member James Nepper. And the way this would work is there's a yay and nay, and you would push that white button in the middle to either side depending on how you wanted to vote. And above that, there is a circular switch. Then you would push that, and that's how the pages would know to come to that certain member. Here's a picture depicting how it would have worked from the speaker's rostrum. And behind that is what the voting machines look like today. There's a yay and nay button in green and red corresponding to the vote color. There's a page button, and now there are plugs to hook up computers or chargers, an Ethernet cord to hook up to the internet, and other lights and things that are more advanced than our simple yay or nay vote you saw in the middle of the case. This is the speaker's voting board that would have been in the House floor at the speaker's rostrum. But this unit has all the members' names on each of the spots corresponding to their seat on the House floor. And when the time came to vote, each light behind each of these little buttons would light up green or red corresponding to their vote on the House floor. So you can see behind it, there are a lot of pictures of former speakers who used this exact voting machine. Speakers from Bob O'Donnell, Jack Seltzer, Matt Ryan, Bill DeWeese, Mr. Irvis, and Mike Turzai would have used this, and as recent as Brian Cutler a few months ago. So this unit is very historic, and the House Archives is now the custodian of this piece. Most people and most members and staff have never seen this piece unless they come up to the House Archives. But if they were on the floor, members would have only seen it if they were doing the daily prayer or if they were speaker pro tem for the day. These member name slides are from the wall voting board on the House floor. Like the first poster we saw, where the names were all laid out, these would have been what they looked like up close. So there would have been lights behind each of them, and they would light up red or green, depending on their vote, and then yellow if they were abstaining or not present during the day. This poster describes how members and staff have moved into the 21st century using social media and other digital forms of communication. So many members have some form of social media, whether it be Twitter, like you see at the top there. That is the portrait unveiling of former Speaker Mike Turzai. And below that, you see screenshots of Facebook and Instagram, which is another form of communication members now use. This is from former Representative Ed Gainey and Tara Toohill on the right. So these are ways now members communicate with their constituents instead of using paper, letters, and mailers and newsletters. And even sometimes they do news spots and informational videos like you see at the bottom, which is former Representative Bill Court, who did an informational video about being safe while you're boating on the rivers. Most members do not use newsletters and mailers anymore. They now use social media and other digital forms of communication. This is an old telephone booth from the back of the House chamber. If members needed to make a phone call to their district offices or to constituents or even family, they'd have to use these telephone booths. There would be rotary phones or phones of the era. In each booth, there's a seat that they could sit down, and they would be able to make private phone calls in this booth instead of using cell phones like we have today, where members can access anybody anywhere via a cell phone. This concludes our small tour of our new exhibit, The Transformation of House Technology, here in the House Archives. We're located on the 6th floor of the IRFA's office building in Harrisburg and the Capitol Complex. You can visit us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. We hope you come visit us in person to see this exhibit, but otherwise you're welcome to visit our social media pages. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.